Strong Dads wants to thank 4Speed on 50 for sponsoring today's show. If you like classic cars, great food, and a taste of Americana, you have to visit 4Speed on 50's Diner, located on Route 50 in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Stop in today for a meal and an experience you won't soon forget at 4Speed on 50's Diner. What do you want me to say? Women.
They got your attention.
Now, welcome to Strong Dads. This is Merle Hutchinson and Carl Andre, and we are bringing you another great show today. Man, we're talking about women.
Women.
I'm leaving. You know what? I think I'm going to leave now and let you carry this show.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's going to be a good idea or not. So,
how are you this morning?
I'm good. A little hoarse, I said, and I have that problem in the mornings and a little allergy, so if I start coughing or anything, he'll edit that out.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
You doing good?
Yeah, same way, fighting some little stuff or whatever, but I don't sleep well anymore with this whole leg thing of mine. I will go to bed feeling perfectly fine, and 2 o'clock in the morning, my knee is killing me. And Linda's like, is our marriage okay? Because I get up and I have to go sleep in the recliner, and I can never tell when it's going to do it. And so last night, I was up in the recliner sleeping again. She's like, "Is everything okay?"
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, except for the fact that my leg hurts.
Yeah, that's almost a nightly thing for me, and I don't even have that leg thing. Yeah, it's shoulders. It's a weird insomnia that I have. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do have I think, a great topic. Probably going to be a little controversial, I think. Would you think?
I would say so. And I'll say this. We're not just a couple of old white guys longing for the past. And we're going to be talking about biblical chapter and Proverbs. Yeah. It's, in today's society, you start talking about these things, you kind of like, it's a guy thing,
Yeah.
No, it is and it isn't. I mean,
I want to touch base on that. We had a discussion the other day about if you let new ideas take birth, eventually enough time will pass where you'll be actually able to see the fruit that they produced or not, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so, we've talked about a lot of different things in our men's group and stuff. And now we have, let's just use the example of phone technology.
Yeah.
10 years ago, you couldn't say whether this was going to be necessarily good or bad. You could speculate.
Right.
But now we kind of have some pretty hard evidence that certain things are not producing what we needed them or wanted them to produce.
Or what we hoped.
Or what? Yeah. Right. And so the net gain is maybe more of a loss, maybe. Or it's neutral at best. Yeah. And I think our topic today has enough history now behind it that this is not two old white guys talking about their opinion. Right. We actually have enough that says, wow, look what's happened because we bought into this. Maybe we were duped. I think you used that phrase earlier. So anyway.
I got your sponsors you want to thank?
Yeah, let's hit our sponsors and we'll get rolling. So we want to thank Quality Auto Mart, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and 4Speed on 50 Diner. So we also want to thank all you guys that are out listening and out doing your thing. We you know what? More than anything, we appreciate men being good men. And we do pray for you guys. We pray for our families. We know that without good, strong men, we continue to deteriorate as a culture. And so we just want to thank you guys who are stepping up and stepping up well. Not we're going to talk about not the idea of creating an authoritarian monster in the house, but actually somebody who shows their family well how to live in a biblical way. So we just want to thank you guys for doing that.
And I might jump in there and say this is maybe an unusual show. Maybe your wives watch this. You have a wife that watches it from time to time.
Or makes you watch it.
Yeah, but I would say this is one you might want to watch together. And it's about being a Proverbs 31 woman. And I know I speak for, I think, Merle, and definitely for myself, how blessed we are to have Proverbs 31 women. Mm-hmm. But this is a show that I think would be really good for a husband and wife to watch together. At least we hope. We haven't done it yet. But
Right, yeah. We'll see on the other end. Maybe I could shoot a little bit of my background, growing up experience with my mom. I don't know exactly about your mom and your dad in that situation, but so I grew up born in 1963, so grew up mostly in the early 70s, through the 70s were really the biggest time of my growth. And my mom stayed at home. My dad owned a business. I, for the most part, think about every neighborhood kid had a similar situation. All the moms were at home.
Pretty much.
And just like I never second guessed it at all. Like it's just what was.
That's the way it was.
Yeah. And I never, ever once thought of my mom as doing less because she stayed at home. In fact,
she had to deal with us.
Well, exactly. Exactly. Like she used to say, you kids are driving me crazy, you know,
Get out
and
of the
everything.
house.
And so like I came to always just appreciate that and benefit from it. And it wasn't until the late 70s, early 80s, interest rates went through the roof. My dad's business was not doing well. And for financial reasons, they made the decision that mom needed to go out and work. That completely disrupted. I mean, she did it, right? She went out but it completely disrupted, I would say, the flow of our family, if I can use that word. Just like there was a tension now. My mom, being the worker that she was, would go work her job all day. And then she still felt this internal obligation to come home.
Do all the role.
Yeah, do everything she used to do.
Right.
And so it didn't take long at all, 3-4 months, and you could just see the exhaustion coming in. And that led to, I'd say, more tiffs between mom and dad with arguments and stuff. The whole thing got really messy.
Family dinners got less, I would imagine.
Significantly less. Right. And my dad, and again, like not to throw him under the bus, but he would complain about the lack of quality of dinners. And it was like, even us kids were like, oh, Dad, you don't need to go there, Dad.
Leave that one alone. That's not a sword you want to die on.
Yeah.
Right.
You might die with a plate in your mouth.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was kind of my story of growing up with my mom.
But on that note, and I'm going to say this is probably controversial. I do believe that there's a difference between men and women, and that certain sexes each are better fitted for certain things. And I think we've talked a lot about, that's another show,
right?
How we're trying to rearrange or redefine these things. I think a few thousand years of evolution, if you want to call it that, has shown that there was a reason for these things happening. It wasn't just that it was a male-dominated society. My mother had abilities when it came to children raising and things like that and around the house that my father just didn't have. And I think that's kind of true when we try to. So it's not a sexist thing that we're talking about here. I think it's just the way we are crafted, the way God made us.
Linda and I got in a heated discussion.
Oh, did I open a can of worms?
No. It is her nurturing heart, right? And we had an opportunity the other day. We were with all of our kids, our grandkids, okay? And she was just bubbling all over the place. And I was good for a while. And then I said, hey, I got to go do some things and cut the grass.
You hit your limit.
I hit my limit.
Hit your limit.
And she's like, really, Grandpa? Like, you don't want to spend more? And I was like, yeah, like I don't get this. Like I can only lay on the floor for so long and build Tinker toys, you know? And she kind of guilted me.
Yeah.
And I said, please don't, like, I want to be in their life. Right. But the idea that I can be there and do it well with a good mind and heart, which speaks to the wiring that you were talking about.
It's a wiring thing.
Yeah. Now, I went out and I took a couple of the kids out and we cut grass on the tractor, right? And they were able to sit on my lap. I could do that then.
You do the physical stuff. Let's go do something together instead of just sitting there.
Yeah, and she didn't quite understand why I wasn't able to just be in the business of the little kids. And it speaks to that. Like, like this is driving me crazy. I can't do this much longer.
Yeah. So growing up, and my father worked for Ford Motor Company. They were really good to him. I've learned that now more than when I was younger. It's a great benefit package. They're still taking care of my mother after his passing. But he worked for Ford. He was a production worker for a lot of years. And I do remember this distinctly. I remember when it started becoming the thing about women being, so I'll say guilted in that they needed to have a career.
Right.
You know, you need to get out there, the equality thing, the feminist thing, and everything like that. In our area, what I noticed was that the families where the wife went to work, they started buying the nicer cars.
Yep.
They started buying the nicer homes. The kids had things that we didn't have. So there was a real, for me, it was a real obvious type of thing that happened, that it was the Joneses. It created a new class of Joneses.
Yeah.
And I'll say this as we get into this, I think so much has been sacrificed on the altar of more. You know, that you just had to, you know, now they've got 2 cars. We had 1 car for a lot of years, even though they were good to Dad. So Mom did pick up jobs from time to time. I think when we got into school, there was a lot of dead time, you know, for her. So she got part-time jobs, and she worked for a while, even up to my teens. But one day she said to my father, she said, "Jigsandry, I'm tired of picking up your slack." And she said, "You ain't never going to amount to anything if I keep doing it." And she said, "You got to get up off your butt and improve your lot," because he liked nicer things. So she quit. And Dad then applied for the apprenticeship program at Ford and became a millwright and was really well paid.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's right for everybody, but my mom recognized that he could do more.
Yeah.
And he could be a better provider, but as long as there was not incentive to do that, he was going to coast.
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody just last night after our group that we forget that it's the pressure that pushes us to the top. We need that type of thing. If you need, and I know some people are not able to do what Mom did. Like you're saying, there's situations like that where somebody has to get a second job, maybe a third job.
Right.
You know, because times are tight and it's just what it is. But yeah, seeing that through the years, it's been interesting to see the change in our culture and in the consumerism that happened. And I think a lot of what was the feminist movement was driven by that factor.
There's no question. I mean, I look at the size of the houses that we live in now compared to the 60s and 70s. I mean, our house that I grew up in was around 1,300 square feet.
That was big. Ours was 9.
9, yeah. We were 1,300. We had 7 of us.
Well,
there were 2 full bathrooms. And that,
well,
which
that's
we thought
handy.
that was a big deal.
That would have been big.
Yeah.
We had 1, and you had to time things. So
Yeah, get in line. Yeah, but so now you actually see these homes that are 3,500 square feet, and nobody's home all day long.
right.
Yeah, and so I think we fool ourselves into saying we need 2 people to work so that we can afford the house. Well, you know, how much is enough, right? And listen, I have fallen guilty. You get used to a standard of living, you get used to a standard of comfort, and you lose sight of what's maybe really important.
Right.
And at what cost is it going to take?
And I want to get to what a proverb, some of the stereotypes and things, but
Yeah.
On that note, I would say we talked about this. I think I mentioned it earlier, the opportunity cost. And I don't think we always figure that in. I've been teaching financial peace for so many years. You see a spouse goes to work, and now you've got and childcare is just incredibly expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So when you figure in childcare, the extra meals out that you're going to be doing because you're not home in time, the extra clothing if you need to dress a certain way, the lunches may be out, the travel, the wear and tear on the car. When you figure all those things in, sometimes I look at people's finances and I go, do you realize how much you're really netting here?
Yeah.
And for this to be such a stressor in your life and the true opportunity cost that you're missing to be with your kids, to make what I think in Proverbs 31, the description of a Proverbs 31 woman, is an incredible legacy. I don't think it gets any better. I think most men, if they said what they wanted out of life, it'd probably be to have this kind of legacy. Because when you go to work for a company, you might get a high-powered job, women or men, but the reality is you drop dead, 2 weeks from that, they would never know you were even there, hardly.
Yeah.
So you're out there banging your head against the wall, creating tension, and all this for really not netting that much money.
Yeah.
And having your kids maybe raised by somebody else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, how about if we read? I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but
Sure.
I hate to reference Proverbs 31 and somebody's driving
Right.
and they go, well, what's 31 about? So how about I'll read through this, and this is Proverbs 31 and starts at verse 10 through 31. All right.
I think we ought to give just a quick note to the first 10.
Okay.
And the first 10 were King can't come up with his name right now. Lemuel?
Lemuel?
That's
Yeah.
it. I think that's it. I've got a brain fart going on right now, but it's his mother who passed this wisdom on, and she's saying, don't waste your time on loose women. Basically, don't spend your energy there. Finding the right woman is really important,
Right.
and holding out for that. And then she also goes on to say you need to address the people who need help. So that's also something that was there. We're not giving that maybe the note it should have, but we're going to pick it up at 10 then.
Yeah. Yeah. A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband can trust her, and she will enrich his life. She brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. She is a diligent and hard-working woman. She rises while it is still dark and provides food for her household and tasks for her servants. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She grinds her loins with strength and makes her arms strong. She sees that her trading is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the spindle and her fingers to the loom. She generously opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hand to the needy. She does not fear the snow for her households, for all of her family are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed and linen garments for herself. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and belts for the merchants. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She laughs without fear of the future. She speaks with wisdom, and her tongue gives instruction. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband praises her. Many women have done noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the praise she deserves. Let her deeds proclaim her worth.
Now, I'll jump in there and I say, I think in the church and in culture in general, when somebody hears that a woman should be submissive to a man, what is the stereotype that you tend to get from that? And what do most people react to?
Yeah, I think that she's basically going to be a doormat. She's going to be walked over, shut up and do what I told you to do kind of thing. You know, almost dictated to.
Seen and not heard. This lays out a completely different caricature of that. I think a lot of guys, it takes, I'm going to say this, it would take a strong man to have this kind of wife.
Yeah.
Because most men are insecure. And if they had a wife that was going out buying land, planting a vineyard, and doing the things that are in here, they would, that's where some of this stereotype comes from. A guy, with a wife beater shirt, basically, you do as I say. That is nothing like is described here. This is an exceptional woman. This is a woman that is your peer. This is a woman that you would be a fool not to listen to take the advice of or the counsel of, and to encourage, because this is going to enrich your life, not somebody you need to control.
Yeah, I also think, Carl, that this says nothing about her not working. In fact, it does nothing but applaud the work that she does. And so I think that idea of not working. I think what's really clear, though, is what she works for.
Right.
She works for her family.
The family.
Yeah, she works for the family. She's not working for her own benefit solely. She's working for the family. She's got a better picture of what's important
Right.
And so she's diligent. My gosh, she's out planting crops, and she's making linens,
Clothes.
and she's selling some of these things,
Yes.
right? So she's making a wage
Yes.
of some sort. But her motivation is not to climb a ladder. Her motivation is to take care.
Is to create a household, a stable household, and where kids can thrive, where a husband thrives, where the family thrives, which is really getting thrown into the bus these days. I laughed at this when we had talked about doing this topic, and the other day we got a basketball goal, and and my wife is just beating the pants off of me.
No, like recently you just got this?
We got it. It set it up in the driveway, but we're setting it up in the driveway, and we need a basketball. So we're thinking we need a bat. Now I rail on my wife. I think we have a secret underground storage facility somewhere. So she disappears and she comes back and unwraps the ball. It's still flat and it's in a plastic wrapper. The 1994 Final Four basketball.
Oh, wow.
It's brand new. We did look it up to see if it was a collector item. It was like $25-$30. So we decided probably we're going to spend something.
Didn't.
We did. We had, but she does that. She is a master at that. Me, it's like, all right, when I need it, I'll go to the store and I'll slay it.
Right.
But she's really that type of provision that she sets in our house.
Yeah.
From that stand. I kick around about all the stuff that's stored around, but it's that kind of thing almost all the time. She's putting together a home where there are supplies, where there is stability, where there's depth. And she's also been keen at some of the investments in real estate that we did. I don't know that I would have done a couple of them, but one of them it's in particular. And I missed a great one because I was the chicken. But this is a woman this isn't the typical stereotype that we think of.
She's busy. Versus, I think sometimes we get that stereotype that when women stay at home, they're not. They're eating their bonbons. They're watching
soap operas, which was the thing in the 70s. There was a lot of those shows that were showing that. The woman looking out the curtain, always gossiping and things like that. It was really a slam against women, especially a Proverbs 31 woman. Like, that's not what we're laying out here. And I'm going to tell you guys, you young guys, at the end of this, it's talking about how beauty is fleeting. I was driven by more lust in my early years. You marry a woman for those features, I'm just going to tell you, a lot of that goes out the window. Charm is deceptive.
Right.
Finding this woman is so vitally important in your life. Don't settle, but also be the person that she would be attracted to as well. This isn't a guy that's going to be lazy.
Right.
You're not going to land this type of woman by sitting around playing video games all the time.
Right.
And not rising to the occasion. So this is the kind of stuff that they're talking about here that endures. This type of woman has these qualities that endures. And my wife is more beautiful in some ways than she was the day I married her.
Yeah.
And I'm just really blessed.
So in saying all of this, I'm really thinking about the idea of, first off, one of the challenges here for our ladies who could be listening, and really the ladies of today, is to stop buying the definition of the world of what a woman should be. To start to approach the idea of, well, what does a Proverbs 31 woman look like, and actually consider that that's an important way to live, right? The second part is, how do us as men start to revalue and honor these ladies so that...
Encourage.
So the idea is, how can us as men be attractive and bring out the best of this type of woman? Versus being cynical of them or judgmental or harsh. Like, what can we do to make this really inviting?
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, first of all, if the women are watching this, and we're just two guys that have lived a number of years through a lot and seen the effects, like you said at the beginning. I did a quick search, and I think I sent you a screenshot of that. Women's happiness is plummeting,
Yeah.
has been going down
Yep.
consistently. They've been made to feel that if they're not working, if they don't have the high-powered job, if they're not out there making it happen, that they're not successful, that they're not of worth or value. And I think we need to reset that. And I'm just going to say, if you're watching this, I don't think there's a more noble thing in life than to be a mother and raise children,
Yeah.
and to be the hub around a home. You know, you could say, well, the guy could do that too. I just don't think that they're as well equipped for it. It's just my opinion and my experience. But I think encouraging them, giving them permission. And maybe the other side of that, I don't know if I'm answering your question, is to really look at your life and say, what do you really need? Do you need to pare back the wants? Are you filling your life with these things, this driving to buy things because the hub in your home isn't providing? I don't know if this makes sense. If you're not happy, and if you've got turmoil and stress and things in your life, and you're working to do all this, and this is what may be causing it, then the other side of that is, well, if I'm going to work, I'm going to have these,
Right.
at least going to get these rewards. Maybe you need to look at your lifestyle and say, could we live on one income? And why can't we? And how do we make that happen? I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, this is a practice in defining the values as a couple.
Right.
Of what are our actual values going to be? Because I think so often this is a practice that goes untouched and assumed. Well, we assume like we're living for the same things.
Right.
Versus what we're saying here is being very intentional. You and your spouse sitting down and going, okay, wait. What really is important to us?
What's
Is
important?
it the kids? Is it the big house? Is it the education? Like whatever it is, more than anything, the two of you should come to an understanding and agreement on what you two are going after.
What your life is going to be.
Yeah, and then when you Carl, I hear this so frequently, and it kind of blows my mind. I should know it, but it just blows my mind. The number of women that come in to Linda and I will hear at some point, especially when there's a lot of turbulence in the marriage, I really just don't even care about how much money he makes. I really just want our home to be together. Like the woman says that.
Yeah.
And that like blows my mind because I'm always thinking us guys get the idea that, they're the ones spending the money and we got to get them the nice house and the nice car. And ladies, after they live in a turbulent place for a long time, and they see that the kids are unsettled, they go, I just want my home to be settled.
They want that nest,
that
calmness. And some of what you're talking about when you ask about the wife, the man needs to accept too. When you talk about how men and women view this, when I teach financial peace, it was always the men who were going to the car and the woman who would stay after and start crying about the stress that they were under financially, because a man internalizes this as I'm not good enough.
Right.
I'm not making enough money, even though it's a matter of how they manage the money. So what I have found is there's very, very few people who are not making enough money to get by. And
Right.
the narrative today is you have to work. Nobody can afford a house and everything. That might be true with the younger people just starting out. I'll just say that I have counseled people making $250,000 a year for 20 years who were broke.
Yeah.
And I've seen people who make very little money, who accumulate money, and you just look at it and go, so if you are looking at this and considering becoming a Proverbs 31 woman, and you want a Proverbs 31 woman, some of that may entail having some sort of financial counseling to look at and say, what is it that we're spending and what can we cut back on? How do we manage our money better? Because sometimes what we've done is we've fallen into this trap thinking, well, there's no other way to live.
Yeah.
You know, we're spending every dime. Yeah, you
It's what it
probably are.
takes. It's what it takes. Yeah. Carl, there are some things that I think we can do better as men.
Yeah.
I think we know that there are many parts of the body and none is more important than the other, right? And so I think sometimes we get this hyper focus on what we bring to the table. And I think we would do so much better to also see and acknowledge what our wife brings to the table. Her areas of skill, her areas of intelligence, right?
Right.
I mean, and acknowledge those to the positive. Like, man, because of you, we're able to do this, right? So one thing I think that happens when you do have a lady that is staying at home, hear this all the time, I'm home watching the 3 kids while you go out work.
Yeah.
Moms, by just the nature of it, will feel sometimes kind of worthless. Like, I don't do anything but watch kids.
Right.
And it's up to us as the dad, the father, to say, what do you mean? You watch kids, right?
Yeah.
And you're fantastic at it, So I think acknowledging what they bring to the table and lifting that up and honor is something that we need to do better at.
Yeah, and sometimes, and especially if you've gotten married and you've got 2 jobs and everything, what you said earlier, a guy, it may not be a traditional role, but you need to help out.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing that women have, feel today that they still have to keep everything over here together and then work a job.
Yeah.
That's not fair. I mean, that's a part of it. So this, and when you come home and she's been with the kids all day, that it might be time for you to, unwind, but there's also the need for her possibly to.
This is where we play tag team.
Yeah.
Right.
So you need to be aware. I'll just say this: you need to just really encourage a woman. Just really, I don't think she'd mind. I tell my wife all the time how pretty she is, and I believe that. I mean, it's not something I'm just saying. There are times I look at my wife and she's just striking to me, and it just takes me away. I mean, but on top of that, I thank her often for the great home that she makes, for being this hub. I'm not that hub. The man is supposed to be the head of the household, but that doesn't mean that he controls everything and dominates everything. It's like she's got total freedom, and I trust her that way, like it talks in here, and she goes about her business and makes marvelous things happen. I would be a fool. I would have been a fool to ever interrupted that, to take that away and not encourage those sides of her. It took a while for me to get my ego out of the way and my pride out of the way on some of those things, especially when it came to games. That's not really my wife just is incredible. She's the best gamer I've ever played against. So,
well, she's a little competitive.
Oh, yeah. A little? I don't know what dictionary you're using.
So. I think something that us men need to be more aware of is we tend to see through our own eyes, and we lack the ability sometimes, or at least maybe not the ability, but the desire to want to see what the actual needs of our wives are. And that is, we love people the way we think they should be loved.
Yeah.
We encourage the way we think they should be encouraged. And I think I have been guilty. I mean,
well, let me interrupt there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we encourage the way we think we want to be encouraged.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's how you said that
or
not. We encourage the way they want to be encouraged, which isn't necessarily the way it is.
Yeah. And so, not to go down this whole road, but there's a whole idea of love languages, right?
Yeah.
And that idea. But the whole deal here is we got to be more tapped into what they need emotionally, physically, right? Spiritually, like what is their need? When I am as narcissistic as I am, I only see through my eyes, right? And this is what I need. But to take the time, and I have not always been the greatest at this, like seeing my wife hurting and almost dismissive of it. Like, tomorrow will be better. Well, that's not what she needs at that time, to actually sit in it with her a little bit and say, hey, what can I do for you? So that idea that we lean into their needs better. We love them the way they desire to be loved. And the only way you do that, like there's no trick to that. Ask them. Ask them what they need, because I promise you won't get it. You won't get it. I bought Linda gifts for years, only to find out she doesn't really care much about the gifts.
Like jewelry. My wife's not big on jewelry.
Yeah. And here I am patting myself on the back, and Linda says, I just wish you'd run the vacuum once in a while.
Oh,
that
you
would have saved me a lot of money if you would have told me that earlier.
My wife, man, you're talking about, I score big points when I bust out the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
It's like, it is amazing, guys. You can go out and spend a whole lot of money. I don't know about your wives, but my wife, I can spend a whole lot of money and not get the same reward. It's pretty amazing. But my wife does tell me.
Yeah.
And I don't always listen. One of the things I've been guilty of lately, and I haven't shared this, but it's been a little dry. In recovery terms, that means restless, irritable, and discontent. And I see
Okay.
this coming out. I don't know. I had something happen around with my father that, as far as like a grieving thing, that hit me like out of the blue.
Huh.
So since then, I don't know what it is, but I answer my wife, I'm short.
Oh, yeah.
And that's disrespectful. And when you do that, when you're aggravated or you think you should understand what I'm talking about, or I don't have to, or I do this thing and she'll tell you I do this like whatever and a deal. That's just, those kinds of things speak volumes. So I have to work at that. And she lets me know. And, a wife that tells you that is a real gift.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they might go off and sulk. It goes underground.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, over time, those kinds of things build up.
Silence kills.
Right.
Silence kills. I think that idea of, just letting them know that you are completely faithful, that your eyes don't wander, that she is the pinnacle of what you look to.
Right.
Emotional affairs, physical affairs. I think if you really want to fracture who they are as a person, and then ultimately your family, let your eyes wander, let your body wander into. We've talked before about the whole the deceptive pit that you can fall into with the affairs, and I think it's real important. Like, man, she needs to know that you are faithful to her, for her to stay committed into taking care of that family.
Yeah, and one of the things, guys, and I don't know what everybody else has, when I got married, my wife requested or required that I not spend time alone with any woman.
Yep.
And at first I was doing a business at that time on the side, and I said, well, I don't, starting to say I don't have control of somebody if I set
Right.
an appointment and just one shows up or something. She said, no, nobody. And I was like, I was equivocating.
Yeah.
I wasn't really making excuses. I was trying to qualify that it's not always reasonable. But when I looked at it, I said, I do have a choice even in that moment to say, listen, we need to reschedule or something like that. So that's a good rule. Even talk about the best thing to come between a man and a minister and a woman is a desk.
Yeah.
Keeping that distance. Yeah. That's a way of honoring your wife.
Yeah. How about just honoring what they dream for, what they dream of?
Yeah.
And with the things, I know you have talked about, you and Linda like the vacation in completely different areas. We talk about his Linda and my Linda. We both have Linda. So he's not with my Linda. He's with his Linda. But how you vacation in completely different areas, right?
Well, she has preferences.
Preferences.
Yeah.
You still go to the same places, but how dismissive it could be for you to say, the beach is ridiculous, it's hot, it's sandy, it's stupid, I'm not going. Versus, which that's what you probably want to say.
Well, I have said that. It's not popular, but I have said that.
Versus, excuse me, the give and take of, hey, your idea is not bad. Right, I'll honor it.
Right,
and again, there's some reciprocal agreements there.
Right. Well, what Scott Peck said, what is love? The definition of love is the willingness to extend yourself for the benefit of another.
Yeah.
You can define a lot of other things, but when it comes down to putting the rubber to the road, it's action. And it's that willingness to, so when it comes to those vacations, we've done those. I'm not a beach person at all. I don't understand it. I really don't. I'm Chevy Chase at the edge of Grand Canyon in vacation.
Okay, it's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I do at the beach. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I just don't. I like air conditioning and sitting on the beach roasting like a lobster is just not my idea. But she loves it, and you got to give and take that way from that standpoint.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about some things that we probably ought not to do, that maybe we have fallen into the habit. Like I would say, I don't intentionally wake up to do these things, but they have come out of me, and I realized some of them. Criticize her. You talk about how you lift your wife up and tell her how pretty she is. I've complimented Linda, but I've also been critical of her. Out of my own insecurities, out of just
and even frustrations when you have an idea how things should be.
You're ridiculous. This is what we're doing, or this is how it should be. So I didn't have to say you're ridiculous. Like I had to put the knife in and twist it a little bit. And so I think sometimes I wouldn't want to be talked that way. So again, like just being aware of there should be a level of criticism and accountability within any relationship, but how critical are you, right? And what's the harshness that you're delivering it? I think sometimes we need to be a little bit better aware of.
It's also, like I said, in the blended family, you got to choose your battles well.
Yeah.
What sword are you going to... And, as far as criticism, belittling, and things like that, it takes, again, I think it takes a really strong man at a lot of times. You've got to be secure in yourself. Because early on, and going back to the blended family episode we did prior, there were times I argued a point that I knew I was completely wrong on, but I was just I'm going to make a stand. I'm going to, even though I was being a butt, and if you do that with your wife very much, you need to look at what's going on with you from that standpoint.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but don't criticize, belittle, disrespect.
Yeah. Take for granted.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many that you mentioned before that Linda out of nowhere had this basketball that she,
brand new.
Well, I take for granted, like if I need to know where something is in the house, I don't ask me. I ask Linda because she knows. She's got this map in her head of where everything is. She has a visual of, I saw that over here the other day, and it's there. Right. And so the idea that you just take it for granted, and our kids will sometimes even say, "Mom, where'd you put this? Where'd you put that?" It's like, no, like your mom's not your keeper. Right. And you assume that she is. Right. And I can be just as guilty of just taking them for granted for what they bring to the table.
And we go back to the very beginning here where it talks about a woman, a wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. And you think about if you had this treasure in your life, you would do everything to secure it.
Yeah.
You would do everything to protect it. You would do everything to enrich it from that standpoint. So this is, and I don't mean to talk too much in esoteric terms, but this is the best investment a man can make.
Yeah,
it really is. If the Bible's replete with what happens. It's worse. You'd be better off to dwell on the corner of your roof than in a house with a contentious woman.
Wife. Yeah.
You look at that and go, where does that come from? I mean, you might think, and I'm just going to say this. I think it's very possible that just about any woman can be encouraged and enriched and grow into a Proverbs 31, a grand woman, with the right compliments, the right and I know there are bad people out there, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of times when a guy looks at his wife and thinks, she's this, that, and the other, and that's not good, I think a lot of that comes back to what he has done in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I'll take this back to an elementary school lesson, right? So at the elementary school level, when I'm counseling there and you see some poor little guy come in and he's crying from the playground, "What's wrong, bud?" "I don't have any friends. I don't have any friends." And you start to do a little bit of tweaking on that and you realize, well, he's not being a very good friend. Mm-hmm. And so, if you are not in a great place in your relationship with your spouse, the first place to look really is not at her, but at you.
Yourself.
Are you the honoring one? Are you being respectful? Are you being a good spouse? Right? So to have a friend, you got to be a friend. To have a God-honoring or a Proverbs 31 woman, you need to be that biblical man.
And part of that, what we talk about, is you got to be willing to die for her.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing we're talking about. You need to be a provider. We've talked a lot about what the woman should be, but the man's got a role in this too.
Absolutely.
We talked about how much she's taken on. She's got to know, like you said, that you're there, and you need to be out there providing. You need to be the lion's share of it, in my opinion. Now, there are a lot of women who make more money than their husbands. I understand. But I look at it and go, again, there's a lot of that gets sacrificed on that altar we talked about earlier. But you need to be willing to be a provider and step up to the plate.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the definition of provision, right? It doesn't always have to be money. It could be in so many other different areas. So anyway, I think as we kind of wind this down, I think, no marriage is perfect. No person is perfect. But the idea here, we have seen what's happened by, I'll just call it the feminist movement. We have seen what's happened to families. We've seen what's happened to the relationship between men and women at large.
Right.
There's
fractured.
There's a polarizing point there, and no one has been better for it. Right? Like, yes, there have been good things that have come out of the general feminist movement, but one good thing is we've realized now how important those moms are in the home, and the family unit, the importance of that. We've come to realize how important that is, and I just think that if we really want to do well, the experiment's over. We've got the results in. To keep going back with the same hypothesis, expecting different results, is going to create just kicking the can down the road farther and farther. So I think it's really time for us to come back to a biblical way of saying, hey, my spouse and I, how do we come together and do this well, honor God, and then show really the fruit through our family.
Yeah, and on this may or may not fit, but I think today one of the problems that a good friend said one time, we have too much money. And what he was talking about, we don't have an interdependence on each other any longer.
Right.
So today a woman and a man can get out and get a job, have their own apartment, everything like that. And you think, well, why not? Where's the incentive for that? Well, the Bible talks about a two-stranded cord is much better than one, and three is even better. So I look at it and say, there's the statistics are in that you're more likely to live longer if you're married, both of you. So I hope we have a renewal somewhere here of the importance, the godly design for man. It says he made for him a helpmeet, somebody from his side, a parallel. So I just hope that there's a renewal of that, an awareness that this is the design and this is the type of woman and the roles and things that God sought for, and their return to that, to say, a partnership is so much more beneficial than people living alone in their basements or in their apartments and going about their lives and trying to make things happen on their own.
I've said many times, God's ways cannot be mocked.
True.
They can't be mocked, and we think we have a better way, but go ahead and experiment and see how it works. So
man plans and God laughs.
Yeah. So, hey guys, hopefully this gets some discussion going between you and your spouse. And hopefully, it's done well. The two of you are both equally important in this relationship. And so we would just encourage you to, get in for a long car drive or sit down at the dinner table afterward or whatever and just, hey, what do we value? What's important? Compliment each other for what you both bring to the table. I think that goes a long way, that people start to feel valued and they're willing to stay in the investment of marriage if they feel valued.
And I think I would say sit down together and pore over Proverbs 31.
Very good.
And ask yourself, especially you guys, can you allow your wife to be this? And why not? And see what the wife thinks about that, and see what a noble role there really is laid out here.
Yeah,
I don't think that I would definitely
go back into that.
Both of you together read that.
All right, guys. Carl, you think we got it through and through? You think?
I guess we'll watch to see what maybe any kind of comments might be. If there's a flaming arrow that comes from the sky,
you think they'll come from the men or the women? Hey, we want to thank you guys again for listening and watching the Strong Dads podcast. We want to thank our sponsors again, Quality Auto Mart, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and 4Speed on 50 Diner. Carl, you got any final things before we close it up?
I think we've said enough, hopefully.
All right, so go out there and be a strong dad. Strong Dads wants to thank Quality Auto Mart and Service for being a proud sponsor of the Strong Dads podcast. Started in 1985 and going strong for all these years. Recently, Quality Auto Mart has transitioned from owners of Mark and Nancy Repke to longtime employee Fred and Lorene Venus. For all your automotive needs and golf cart needs, check out Quality Auto Mart, located across from Indian Lakes on Highway 46 outside of Batesville, Indiana. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.